Hey, and welcome to Tom's IT channel. Today I'm going to walk you through the process of researching a computer build. So this is where I like to start all of my PC builds. Even though I know how all the components interact, this is the place I go to. Technology changes. If the good thing is when it comes to building a computer, everything is color coded and it only goes in one spot. So for the most part. So when it comes to actually assembling the computer, it's not rocket science. You can do it. And when it comes to knowing the interactions of what components work with what, go here. And I'll put all these URLs down in the description, but I start at pcpartpicker.com and I click System Builder, and that takes you here. This is pretty much everything you need or probably need. Some of these things might be extra, but if you fill in everything, you definitely will be able to build a computer. If you fill in everything and you come to something and think like laptop, I'm building a desktop. Do I need a laptop for that? No, that's not a component. So just think, it'll be obvious. So as we get started here, let's start with the CPU. So what are we building? We are going to build a budget build computer. The goal here is $1,000 is what I'm thinking. It's a budget gaming computer slash it won't be able to play the most recent games on full settings, but it's a budget computer. It's a good all-around computer, but you can also do a little gaming on it. So we're going to go choose a CPU, and right off the bat, you're presented with AMD and Intel. Good people disagree, so we can argue all day long about what one is better and why and what you should pick, but at the end of the day, AMD has always been considered a budget build CPU. But the later AMD processors can actually outperform the Intel processors. And that's not my opinion, that's cold hard facts. So whenever I'm building a computer, I go to pcpartpicker.com and I start looking at what possibilities I have and price ranges over here on the right. But then I take this information and say, okay, let's say I don't know anything, and we're just going to assume that you don't know anything. So let's just go straight to what is an AMD Ryzen 5? How does that compare? Okay, well, let's come over here. So here you're choosing a CPU, so you want to go over to userbenchmark.com and click on CPU. And look at that, right at the top, Ryzen 5 3600, and this is the best user-rated CPUs. So this is a good budget build, and they're coming up with about $198, and we come over here, $189. So it's actually a little bit cheaper if you choose to buy it through them. Side note, you don't have to buy the components from pcpartpicker.com. You can just use it to build your list, and then once you have your list, then you can take that and go off and buy it on Amazon or Newegg or wherever you want to buy it. Okay, so we decided on the Ryzen 5. Let's go over here to userbenchmark.com. We see AMD Ryzen 5 3600, and generally the numbers correlate to Intel, generally speaking. Now, the models don't. But what you can see is an i5, you can assume an i5 and a Ryzen 5, they're going to be competitors. An i7 and a Ryzen 7 is going to be competitors. So in general, if you're looking at a Ryzen 5, you can compare it to an i5 and kind of see, and based on price, roughly get a good comparison. And what I love about this site is so you see some ratings, but what does this mean? Value? Okay, come over here to compare up here at the top, and it already chose i5 for me, so I'm going to just click on processors, and I'm going to type in Ryzen 5. All right, and we're looking at like the 3600, 9600. All right, so now we have a comparison side by side of these two processors, Intel versus AMD. So you can argue all day long about which one's better and why. And maybe somebody's over there behind the camera screaming at me, why are you comparing the 96 to the 3600? This is just a general overview. This is how to research. You do the comparisons that you want to do. But when you're comparing these, I chose these because these are pretty similar processors, and to prove my point, it's only plus 3% because it's Intel. So you got a plus 3%. These are very similar processors. But what's interesting is speed rank. This is ranked 16th overall based on 78,000 user benchmarks. This is 22nd overall. And then you can kind of take a look. Gaming, 94%, 91%, workstation 66%, workstation 78%. So you can see the AMD is actually better as a workstation than gaming, which is odd because AMD has always been slated as, yes, it's a budget PC, but it's better at video in general. So it's quite often used in gaming builds. So you got your overclocking, Intel's better. That's not terribly surprising. Your market share, which I don't find that particularly helpful. Nice to have, so they're both the same wattage, the same cores. Oh, AMD is actually 12 threads. It's a hugely higher thread count. You can see over here there's comments, or over here, this one's 71% more popular. So sure, it's an Intel. Everybody likes it more than the AMD. But when you come over here, you're like, oh wow, this has actually got more thread counts. Thread counts makes it be able to multitask better. It depends on the programming and how how the software was written. But nonetheless, it has a higher thread count. So you can see the notes here. That's why I like this website. Then if you want to just dig in and just kind of read the comments, you can really go through all of this and see how they explain it. But at the end of the day, I picked these because if you're comparing these two, you're comparing apples to apples. They're really the same thing. So you can choose either a Ryzen 5 or an Intel Core i5. So at that point, you're choosing based on price. So 9600 is 206, 189. You're choosing based on price. Okay, let me add an amendment to that. You are choosing based on price because we're looking to do a budget build. Overall, they're the same basic processor, but an AMD computer does not have the same components. Usually RAM can be used across AMD or Intel, but your motherboards are different. You can't use an Intel processor on an AMD motherboard. The socket type won't work. It won't match. Your CPU cooler won't work. So there is a lot of differences. But let's just, for the sake of argument, we said, it's got more threads and it's cheaper. This is the one. So we're going to click add. All right, we've got our processor. So we have no compatibility issues here. It's green, no issues found. So we can come down here and choose a CPU cooler. The thing to know, I got a little excited when I hit yes. You want to come over here and look at the clock. You are looking for socket type. Okay, AM4. So your socket type is AM4. So that's the shape, that's the number of pins, it's the socket type. That's what it is. This is the socket type for this processor. And that's going to determine what motherboard you pick. That's going to determine what some of the other components. So this is an AMD. It's a Ryzen 5. We know that. I'm just going to hit back. All right, so now we're going to choose a CPU cooler. This is where socket type is super important. So we're going to come down here and choose AM4 because we can't use an LGA 1151. That's an Intel. So we're going to use a socket type AM4, and now you know all of this is probably going to work. All right, so fan only versus liquid cooled. Today, the liquid cooled system, I'm recording this on a liquid cooled system. If you choose closed loop, it's virtually plug and play. It's very compatible. It's very easy to use. For the amount of noise that's generated in general, your liquid cooled is going to be quieter. But having said that, we take a look and we see this is 37 dB. This is a liquid cooled. This is just a fan only, and it's 9 to 36. So this might actually be quieter. But in general, the reason that a liquid cooled is usually more quiet is because the fans run at a low speed, and that's almost always enough. It takes hours of gaming, hardcore, maxed out graphics before your CPU really gets so hot that the liquid cool can't keep up with it. A liquid cool, what is it? In case you don't know, your liquid cooled cooler if it's a closed loop system, then you don't have to add any water. You're not pouring water into your computer. It's a completely closed loop system. You don't ever see the fluid. You don't ever do anything, but it works like a radiator on a car. You click on it so I can get to the picture. So you put this part on your CPU. The fans have a radiator behind it. You can see it kind of looks like that. It's a radiator. You put this part on your CPU. The fans cover the radiator, and the liquid goes out one and in the other, and it just circulates over and keeps the CPU cool. And then as it goes back up, it runs through the fans, just like a radiator works on a car. Runs through the fans of the radiator on the cooler, and then the fans cool the saying fans the metal lines. The liquid runs through there, and the fans are constantly running, cooling it. Then the liquid comes back down the other side, much cooler temperature, and just continually is looping over and cooling that CPU for you. Whereas in contrast, you have this, and the heat. This is just a fan only CPU cooler, and what happens is that this part is touching the CPU, it's in contact with the CPU, and the heat is dissipated, transferred, because it's metal and highly conductive metals, and so the heat, it's highly thermal, so the heat transfers up, it runs through here, and it just, the copper warms up, and then it runs again through the radiator, the fan cools it, and it's just constantly dissipating, but there's no water, there's no nothing. It's just metal touching metal, and it transfers heat well. So this fan runs higher more often. However, liquid cooled, not cheap option usually, 129 versus 29. So considering the noise level, that's the main thing that you're generally concerned about. Yeah, if you're not overclocking, you probably don't need a liquid cool. It's just kind of a nice to have. And for a budget build, trying to stay under $1,000, we got to go cheap. So we're going to go with we already chose AMD socket right down here. So we're just going to choose this one. It's 29 bucks. It's highly rated, 30 bucks. We're going to click that. Now, if you're at this point and you say, boy, I don't know if I really want a Ryzen 5. Maybe I need to do a little more research. Well, then I like to go to other websites and read the reviews. So let's just come over here and see a Ryzen 5 3600. See what it comes up. All right. This came up with a combo. 3600. Can I get to just the processor? All right. It's got 500 reviews, and it's got an average of 5 out of 5. So then you can come in here to Newegg, newegg.com. Again, I'll put these links in the description below. But Newegg is a great website if you don't know already. A lot of techie people shop here, and so you generally, for the most part, you get a lot better review quality. It's not like, I like Amazon. I get a lot of good use out of Amazon, and I do find a lot of good reviews on Amazon. However, the reality is you also see a lot of people just copying and pasting reviews and paying for good reviews and that kind of garbage. So Newegg is pretty straightforward. It's a good site, good quality people, and it is generally techie people shop here. So you can come in here and read the reviews, pros, cons, overall, pros, cons. So if you needed to know and you're wondering, you can just come in here and kind of read through. You can check out the specs on it. If there's any specific questions you have, we're going to get into that in just a minute. You can ask questions, browse questions, see what other people are asking about the CPU. Now you kind of know. All right, so now you're going to choose a motherboard. Again, remembering your socket type. So you're going to come down here, AM4. All right, we want socket type AM4. Now, all of these motherboards are now socket type. So let's talk about form factor. When it comes to form factor, you've got micro ATX, ATX, mini ITX. Let's see what else pops up here. I know there's like mid ATX. Here we go. ATX, EATX, micro, mini DTX, flex ATX. There's all kinds of different sizes. The thing to know is ATX is standard, ATX is big, micro ATX is slightly smaller. It's kind of a medium size. It's kind of those encyclopedia size computers, about that big. It's a micro ATX. Your ATX, that's going to be your standard tower, desktop tower computer. So ATX. When it comes to price, you can find cheap ones on either end. Both of them have really good motherboards. Really, for me, if I'm doing a budget build, I'm going to look at reviews. I'm going to look at price. I'm going to look at the functions that it has, the things that I'm looking for. But I generally lean, if I can afford it, I'm going to lean towards an MSI. Um, Currently, at least at the time of recording, MSI is a really good brand. So let's just start with MSI. So I'm going to click and filter for MSIs only and start kind of looking at prices. Okay, so for $80, we got it pretty good. Okay, it's a micro ATX gaming computer, so that's good. $100 gaming plus max. 75. Okay, so your Pro M2, generally when it comes to a Pro versus a gaming, they're going to be, this is more of a workstation motherboard. This is going to be more considering your graphics, and that it's going to handle the threads a little bit differently. The channels between the CPU and the RAM are going to be handled slightly differently. Overall, either one's going to do. I game a lot, do a lot of video editing, but I actually have a Pro motherboard right now. But I've bought gaming, I've bought Pros. You can use either one. If you can afford it, this is one of the areas that you get what you pay for. If you can afford to buy a better motherboard, then buy the better motherboard. So, I would buy this $80 one, and I'm going to start with a little bit better one. If I have to come back to it, then I will, and drop my price. But this has got a lot more reviews. It's a full ATX, so it'll be a little bit bigger. But let's click on this and kind of take a look at it. So you can go DDR4 up to 3466. So your 3000, your 3200. This is going to be a little bit more standard. 2400. Read some reviews. It's got onboard Ethernet. Don't think it has wireless networking. It does not have Wi-Fi, so that's something to consider. It does have an M.2 slot. Probably not considering Crossfire with a budget build. So this looks like a good motherboard. It can do gigabit. It's got 6 SATA slots and an M.2 slot. USB 3.0 headers, okay. Wireless networking. Really, the only con about this is it doesn't have wireless networking, which, in general, if it's a desktop, you're probably going to have a LAN drop there. But it's still nice to have. I know some people who have bought motherboards that don't have a wireless option, and then you've got to buy a USB Wi-Fi adapter later on just in case. Because the reality is, you go to a LAN party, you do something, and you just need to be able to connect to Wi-Fi sometimes. Maybe while it's at home, at your desk, if it only ever sits there and you always have a LAN drop, then maybe it'll work for you. But if you ever take it anywhere for any reason, then you're gonna want a little bit. Probably gonna want wireless. But this is a budget build. We're probably not gonna take it out. I'm gonna go with this one because I like the price. I like brand. So we're gonna plug this in. Warning. These parts have potential issues or incompatibilities. I love PC Part Picker. I thought this would work. Let's go see what it is. See details below. All right. AMD B450 chipset motherboards may need a BIOS update prior to using CPUs upgrading the BIOS CPU. Older BIOS versions. Okay, so this has brought up an interesting point. I didn't know this. So an AMD B450, I'm going to just go like this. All right, so it's saying AMD B450 compatible with Ryzen 5. Let's see what we can see. All right. So 3600 on B450. You can watch the YouTube videos, compatibility check. Yeah, it can't go wrong in Reddit. That's a joke. All right, and we're back. I'm going to go with the MSI B450. I kind of shopped around, looked at a few things, watched the YouTube video or part of one, and this guy got this one going. So I did see a guy who got this one going, and there's no issues. So this is just warning you, so it's good to know. I spent the time, did the research, and we're going to go with it. All right, so we're choosing RAM. What RAM do we use? All right, so I usually at this point go to open a new, and I either do this or I come over here to the specifications on Newegg, so I'm going to do the MSI B450A Pro. I'm going to go Pro, this one, right? 100, yep, this is the one. Alright, so let's come down to the specs. And we can see what kind of RAM we need. Should I pass it? RAM. Okay, so it takes DDR4. It supports all of these. I'm going to target the 2400 because it's not the fastest RAM, it's not the slowest RAM. Kind of middle of the road. Either 2400 or 3000 should be pretty widely available. I'm hoping. So let's come over here. We're going to choose RAM. All right. Now we are going to do DDR 2400. It's the first choice. Widely available. All right, what do I got for slots? Got 4 slots. 288 pins, so we'll just choose this. It shouldn't really matter. Get 4 slots. Again, budget build. I would love to go with 4 8s, but I'm going to go with 4 4s for budget. And check out the prices. All right. RAM, you get what you pay for. Corsair Vengeance LPX. This is what I run in my computer. Been running it for 5 years. This is solid RAM. I'm going to add that. Okay, and again, this warning is still here. We'll review it again at the end. So now we've got all the slots filled. We've got 16 gig. We've got a motherboard. Choose storage. Okay, now when it says storage here, it actually means the hard drive. So we need to choose our hard drive for the computer, which is storage. It has an M2 slot, so let's come back here and see that. Expansion, SATA, M2. It has one M2 slot. You can do, I don't care about supporting PCIe. Okay, it's got an onboard M2 slot. So, we want an M2. You want an M2. It's the fastest possible hard drive out there, and you can get them pretty well budget. You don't, in general, you're going to want, okay, not the form factor. I'm going to choose the interface, M2. And your Samsung Evos are your best CPU or your best hard drives. So for 89 bucks, you get a 500 gig. This is the one. It's got great reviews. How do you know? Why? Why is this my favorite one? So there isn't all the information here. So let's come over here. Let's check out what Newegg says about it. So we're going to do the Samsung 970 Evo. And 89 bucks, 500 gig. Okay. Right there. But we'll see it in specs. Okay. Up to 3,400 megabytes per second sequential read, up to 2,300 megabytes per second sequential write. This number is super key to pay attention to. Your sequential read, your sequential write, any of your read-write speeds, sometimes they list some more than just the 2 and just sequential. This is how fast it does everything. This piece of hardware today, in my opinion, is one of the slowest pieces of hardware. And at the time of recording, the market is just catching up to the fact that the CPU and the RAM, they've blown away what we're capable of reading off a hard drive. It seems like every couple of years there's a rhythm. One, what's the choke point on making a computer faster? Oh, it's the hard drive. Oh, it's the RAM. Oh, it's the CPU. It changes. Right now, it's the hard drive. We can only get up to 5 gigabytes per second off of it, depending on the one. This does 3.4 gigabytes per second. It can read off of the hard drive. And when you're loading a game or you're loading multiple, a video editing software that's a 20 gig program that, takes up 20 gigs on your hard drive, it takes time to read that. The biggest thing that's slowing us down is not our thread count, it's not the amount of RAM that we have, it's we're maxing out our hard drives. So this right here will make your Windows boot faster, this will make your applications run faster. This is the piece of equipment you need to worry about. Just for general speed performance. Now, again, don't be afraid to come over here. So we can go to, it's a solid state drive, M2 solid state. So we're going to click on this. We're going to do a comparison. Let's just choose Evo. I didn't choose the Evo Plus. I chose the Evo. 1 terabyte, doesn't matter. Okay, here's a 500 gig. It's the same. So let's just see another 500 gigabyte. Standard hard drive. Let's see. They're catching up. There for a while, Samsung was the only one that could read and write at that speed. Trying to find some of these other ones that are... Okay. Yeah. All right, there you go. So for a long time, you could buy 2 solid states, put them side by side, and everybody would rate, oh, it's a solid state. But the reality was, one only read at half a gigabyte per second, while the other was reading and writing at 2, 3, 3.5 gigabytes per second. It's a huge difference, half to 3.5. So pay attention to the read and write speeds when you're picking your solid state. You want to go with I recommend the 970 Evo. Good, cheap, fairly cheap, good budget build. Even better than budget build. But all right, we've got storage. You only need 1. You can put in more, but if you put in more than 1 M2 on this particular motherboard, some have 2 slots, but onboard slots. But if you choose another one, you'd have to put in a PCIe card, and you may not have room. All right, video card for a gaming build. What are we gonna do? What are you gonna get? So let's take a look at video cards. Obviously, we're gonna look at, let's look at, not SLI, that's Intel. We'll go two-way crossfire capable. Even though we don't plan to do crossfire, it's good to plan for that just in case. Although in general, it's not recommended. It's when it comes to buying your video card, this is where you want to spend the money. If it's a gaming computer, this is where you want to spend your money. I would say a good rule of thumb is 40 to 50% of your build cost should go into your video card. That is the best piece of equipment you have to buy. Everything else can compensate, will last far beyond 2-3 times longer. Your CPU will be fine for 6 years. In 6 years, buying a decent CPU now, it will still be just fine and keeping up. It may be a little slow, a little low, but it'll be keeping up. But your video card, you're gonna have to replace it in 2. So it just won't be able, 2 or 3. It just won't be able to keep up. So spend your money on the video card, at least for gaming builds. So I'm choosing Crossfire capable. I don't plan to. So when it comes to Crossfire, the idea is that you have 2 video cards and your software uses 2. Well, that means double the power, right? No, wrong. Your second video card actually only operates at about 80%. Your third, they say, goes to 50%, and it drops off even more after that. So is it worth it? Not generally. Spend the money, get the better video card. You say, I can't spend the money, I don't have it. So get a budget one, but don't plan on Crossfire. Plan on upgrading later. Save up, buy a different one later. Get what you can afford. Again, I steer towards MSI. I'm going to click on MSI. Let's see what we can get here. All right. As far as price goes, I am going to sort this because price is a good indicator of what it's capable of when it comes to a video card. So an MSI R9, 390, 8 gig, core clock. It's got good reviews. go just a hair cheaper. All right, let's go with this. It's a budget build, so if we're spending $1,000, this is right around 40%. You know, we can maybe jump to the 488G, 8 gig. All right, we'll go with that one. So where do we stand so far? 316 watts worth of usage. We're at $931, and we have not built our computer yet. So already we're over. We're gonna have to trim down. We're getting close, but let's go choose our case. All right. So we chose again. We chose now you care about form factor. So if we go back to our motherboard, the motherboard determines. All right, form factor. When you're choosing your case, you care about form factor. When choosing your cooler and other things, you care about your chipset or your socket type, your AM4. But now we care about form factor when we're looking at case. Okay, so ATX. So now we're going to choose a case and form factor. Did I miss it? Type. Form factor. ATX. Okay. Generally speaking, any form factor of ATX, generally speaking, will support a micro ATX because the bigger one can handle the smaller ones, but the smaller cases can't handle the bigger cases. It just won't fit. So if you don't mind the bigger case, it's a gaming build. We like our cases, so go with the bigger case. It's just a case, folks. We don't need to spend $1,279. Let's keep this cheap. See if we can get it around $50 for a decent looking case with good reviews. Deep cool. So when choosing a case, you care about airflow. You want to see your window, but you care about airflow. There's no more pictures. So there's a lot of, you can kind of see there, there's a lot of airflow at the back. It's elevated off the ground a bit, so you can see there's some airflow can come in from underneath, although that's kind of the worst airflow because that brings in a lot of dust. It looks like up top it has some airflow up there, so I'm going to go with this case. This is cheap. It's an ATX. It's got your front panel, USBs. We'll go with this one. Add. We're over budget, so we got to keep it cheap. Okay, so now when choosing your power supply, you need to know how big. In general, 316, you want to double it just for future. You know, you only need 316, but I'm going to start looking at a 600 or 650 right off the bat. I'm not going to try to choose something smaller, only because what if you want to throw in another video card, or you want to up your RAM and it takes more? You just don't want to max it out. You want to be able to run at less than you don't want to try to max it out also because of efficiency. It'll be cheaper to run your computer. So we're going to choose a power supply now. This, we don't need to know. Power supplies are power supplies. The only thing you need to know is they'll fit in almost every case. They'll fit in. Okay, if you get down to the micro ATX or an ITX, definitely it matters. But if you're looking at ATX, generally even most micro ATX, your mid or full towers, they're all going to take the same full-size power supply. There's two things you want to pay attention to. Well, there's a few things. You want to pay attention to your wattage. So we're going to come down here and choose. Okay, we're choosing an ATX. Okay. I thought I could filter for wattage. Apparently I can't. All right, so, here we go. So I'm not going to need more than 1,000. I'm going to start. I don't want anything less than 610. Okay, so that puts us here. So now we know that we have the right things that we're looking at. So now it comes down to price and efficiency. Your efficiency rating matters. When it comes to electricity, it says 1,000 watts. It's not going to be able to do that efficiently. It may not even be able to produce the full 1,000. This is an up to number. And so to cleanly there's always going to be some waste when generating that electricity. So the platinum, the titanium, even the gold, I would go down as low as gold. Um, for a budget build, you could do a bronze, but really let's shoot for gold. Um, and we're going to filter by wattage. So, yeah. All right. Looking at prices and wattage, and we know we got the efficiency rating and the right form factor. So now we kind of look at ratings and price because we're in that. Anything further down, it's only going to go up on wattage. 650 is plenty, so you don't need to go crazy. So for 85 bucks, Corsair TXN. Okay. So there's modular, full, and no, and semi. Okay, semi doesn't happen often, full or no. So when it comes to modular, what that means is you can see it in some of the pictures. Okay, here we go. This is not modular. It has wires. That you got your box, you got a wad of wires that come out. When it comes to cable management, modular is the bomb. If it's not modular, like this one that I'm showing you, then it's just kind of a nightmare to hide those extra cables that you didn't need. So modular is really nice, a fully modular. So let's take a look at 85 bucks, but it's not. It's semi-modular, okay? But I don't want semi-modular. I really want full modular. I know I want full. Let's just look at the full. 9. And you can buy things without ratings, but I always prefer. Okay, EVGA, that's what I use generally. That's obviously a good one. We're on a budget here. All right, this is a fully modular 650 watts, so it's double the power consumption we need. It's an 80 plus gold, so we know that it's efficient. Let's go with that one. Add 90 bucks. Okay, optical drive. Optical drives are your DVD players, CD players. It's 2020. You don't need a DVD player. A few people might, so if you do, great. Come in here, choose it, use the tips that I showed you. Go to Samsung, read about it, see if it's what you want, choose. When it comes to operating system, okay, the great thing about Microsoft is they're allowing you to use their OS for free now. It will have a watermark down here, and it limits some of your. You can't map some network drives. You can't do some advanced commands like netstat or some of those commands don't all work perfectly. So they kind of limit some of the advanced controls of it. But if you're just gaming, you can use Windows for free. So put your money into the computer, save up and buy Windows later. That's what I would recommend. Hey, they're allowing it, take advantage of it. So I'm not going to choose an optical drive. I'm not going to choose an operating system. We don't need software. Hopefully, if you're building a desktop, you have a monitor. If you don't have a monitor, probably going to go over $1,000. You just need to plan to spend an extra couple $100 on a monitor. I'm not going to put that in this video. External storage, you can choose a laptop, not needed. Okay, now we get down to here, peripherals. You can buy keyboards, you might have one already. Speakers, hopefully you should have some. I mean, generally if you're building a gaming computer, a lot of the stuff is plug and play. You already have some of the stuff, so you don't need to buy it. Wired network adapters, you don't need that. You have one. Wireless network adapters, you might want to look into that just in case. But for starters, you're fine. Sound card, most systems are going to have a decent sound to get started with. Again, if it's a budget build, get started for $1,000. Meet your budget. Don't blow your budget for something that you can buy later. It will work as is. So get started and build onto it later. Case accessories, you can do lighting and all kinds of fun stuff, but you probably don't care for a budget build. Thermal compound, most CPUs are going to come with CPUs. Are going to come with it. If you want to be safe, it's like $5 to $8. You can buy some thermal compound and bring it in. Thermal compound is what you use to put between the CPU and the motherboard. I'm sorry, the CPU and the cooler. UPS system, I recommend a UPS system. I'm not going to put it in here. Again, building a gaming computer is not a budget thing. So if you're trying to do it on a budget, you're going to have to make some sacrifices to choose the computer that you want, to get to the computer that you want. It's going to take time. Otherwise, you're going to need $2,500, $3,000 just to get there, to get it all. But you can build it. You can see we have a decent gaming computer. Before we close, let's take a look and see. The only warning still is that message, but I watched YouTube videos, did some reading, checked it out. It's okay. This one will work. You need to do an update to your BIOS. Obviously, ideally, you don't want to have anything red. It's an AMD. We're just going to have some things. It's a budget build. You're just going to have some things. Some physical dimensions. This is almost always in there. You do want to consider this, but especially if you're buying a micro ATX, you want to consider the physical dimensions of the fan. Does it come up too high? Does it stick out so you won't be able to close the lid of the side door of the computer? That matters. Of the case. If the M2 shares bandwidth, yes, but okay, so yes, that's true for all motherboards. When you use your M2 slot that's built in, you're taking away bandwidth from your SATA cables, your SATA ports, and that's fine. We're not using any of them, but if you needed them and you were trying to use all of them all at the same time, you'd be taking away bandwidth and trying to use all. That scenario doesn't happen often. Ignore that. A separate mounting adapter. This you want to go back and read on. Cooler Master 212 and make sure that this cooler, it's saying it'll work, it'll mount, but you may need a separate adapter. In my experience, every cooler that I've purchased comes standard with 3, 4, 5 different options. It's not like we bought an off-the-wall form factor or a lesser-known form factor. We bought an AM4. So it's going to work. It's probably going to come in the box, but when you get it, just know, hey, if something isn't plugging in right, there's probably a problem with it. I'm going to do another video on actually building a computer. Don't know when, don't have the components right now, but we'll do another video at another time. All right, so we said $1,000. We're at 1,067. The good thing is, you can click buy from Amazon right here. I haven't ever done that. You can see this will tell you where your best prices are, but at this point, I pretty much always buy from Newegg or Amazon, just for shipping and warranties and that kind of stuff. So go to your preferred platform. You might be able to get some of these components at, probably not Best Buy, but you might get some of them. You just got to watch the prices. But if you go to Amazon, plug these in, you just take this name, you can find it now, you know what you're looking for, you have all the components, you know that they work because we've went through the compatibilities. If you want to share this, you can actually email this to somebody and say, hey, look, here's the computer, or here's my Christmas wish list, just send them this, and they can come in here and say, okay, he wants this component, this component, this component, they can buy each one. You can save it, do multiple builds. Love this website. I don't work for them. Love this website. Use user benchmark. This is a handy tool to be able to tell, hey, is this faster or is this faster? Which one do I want? And read your reviews at your preferred site. I get good information off Newegg. I get good information off Amazon. But there you go. We built a budget build gaming computer for $1,000, and you plug this into Amazon, and it might come out to $1,200, and you say $1,300. I'm way over budget. I need to figure something out. Well, then you come back here and you say, okay, well, where did I spend a lot of money? $189. Okay, well, if you change this, you got to change this, and that's for $300 to get both your computer and your motherboard. But maybe you go on Amazon, you find maybe they've got you plug in this, and it brings up for $250. Combo. Well, then grab the combo. Just make sure when you do that you then take that motherboard and bring it over here and plug it in, check your compatibility, make sure it works, go check out all the specs. How many slots does it have? Does it take DDR4 2400? Make sure that it lines up. If it does, you're golden. Take the cheaper price, you save $50. Maybe you go out there and you can't find this, or they're sold out, or you don't want to wait, or whatever, so you find a different one. This is just a tool. You use it, bounce back and forth between the different sites, find your perfect build, buy it, put it together. I'll do another video on that. Thanks for watching.